So now he's essentially saying sexual orientation can include adults who are attracted to children. How is this not getting national attention? How is this somebody who is eligible to run for vice president? You support an adult being attracted to a child? Excuse me? Welcome back to Saving the Republic with Joe Staten, presented by Grab Your Gear Network, where we speak to people who work hard every single day and actually go to work and don't just sit at home and scroll on their phone. So if that's you, our network is for you. We have a plethora of content offerings, military content, prep content, shows like these. We talk about current events, many more other types of content. So make sure you check out our channel, subscribe, and like the video. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get today's show. Now, today's show is going to be an expose on Mr. Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, Kamala Harris's newly coined vice presidential pick for the 2024 presidential race. And I've already seen much media coverage of Mr. Walz, painting him as this good old boy Midwesterner, likes to drink beer, likes to shoot guns, likes to go hunting with the boys, and really just this, Midwesterner favorite type of guy. And when you look at his positions, and honestly, even I was surprised to look at what he's done in the past in Minnesota. But when you look at this guy's positions, you quickly realize this has to be one of the most radical governors. This has to be one of the most radical political people I've ever seen in my life. And we're going to start with the story that's been getting the most attention today, and that is Mr. Walz's claims of being in combat and using weapons of war, and really just diving into his military background. So let's just go ahead and take a look at this video. I want you guys to watch this. This is pretty incredible. This is coming from Tom Behrens, which is one of Walz's former fellow National Guardsmen when he served in the Minnesota Army National Guard. And check out what Mr. Behrens has to say.
He's back again to wage a public war of words against Tim Walz.
He abandoned us. What the hell kind of leader does that? He just, as soon as the shots were fired in Iraq, he turned and ran the other way and hung his hat up and quit.
We'll get to Behrens' new message for voters in a moment. But this all starts years earlier when Behrens says Walz's misleading statements about his military service first led him to come forward in the fall of 2018.
So you try to get this message out, but Minnesota's largest newspaper checks it out, says it's 100% true, but yet refuses to print.
When I hung the phone up, I said, what the hell is this, North Korea?
Back in 2005, a warning order went out to the 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery to mobilize for a mission to Iraq. At the time, Walz served as the unit's highest non-commissioned officer, but months later, Walz would retire from the Guard, avoid the deployment, and run for Congress. Tom Behrens was next in line for the position and was asked to take his place.
I was like, well, for Pete's sake, if this guy quit, and if I say I'm not going to do it, what the hell kind of leadership is that? If a company would say that we're going to deploy to Iraq or somewhere and you're going to be gone for whatever amount of time, and then the foreman just says, no, I'm not going. What does that say to the 500 people that work in that factory?
Behrens would go on to serve in Iraq on a nearly 2-year deployment as a command sergeant major. All while Walz began using that title as a congressman. Behrens says he first contacted Walz with his concerns, sending these letters to Washington. They all went unanswered.
But then we fast forward to the election in 2018 in Minnesota, and you try at that time to get people's attention with this story and also with what seems to be a very misleading statement that he continued to make about his service.
It kind of just sat there. When he was a congressman, he bragged that he was a retired command sergeant major. I'm the highest ranking person ever in the House, and all this lie that he was telling. The state of Minnesota came out after 2018, after this was exposed, and they said, well, he can say that he served as a command sergeant major, but he can't say he's a retired one because he's not.
And that's what he was saying.
And he was saying that, and there was lots of lots of cards coming in the mail, for him to be elected. They said right on there he's a retired command sergeant major, just tooting his own horn, just hanging on the coattails of people that actually are command sergeant majors that went through all the process and put all the time in.
A spokesperson for the Minnesota National Guard said Walz wasn't able to retire as a command sergeant major since he failed to complete coursework and requirements related to the rank. Verified documents show the Army corrected his service record. Walz was reduced in rank to an E8 Master Sergeant after retirement and his conditional promotion.
So the governor decided to not go to Iraq for a deployment. and then decided to dishonestly use the title of Command Sergeant Major when running for Congress, and the rest of his rank goes to Iraq without him. It's just, I'm getting signs of a red flag here. And by the way, this is just the tip of the iceberg. So the next thing we're going to look at is Walz's claims about using a weapon of war. Check this out.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
So Mr. Walz was deployed to Italy. He lied about his rank. He refused to go to Iraq when called upon. And we also see some of his fellow guardsmen here commenting on it. This one coming from J.R. Salzman on Twitter. Here I am on our Iraq deployment with the Minnesota Army National Guard, the very same deployment Tim Walz bailed on. Yet another one of his fellow guardsmen right here, sadly, was killed by an IED in the same deployment that Walz abandoned. So, honestly, in my opinion, as a leader, you should never be skirting the line of duty. You should never be skirting when responsibility calls. If you sign up for service, if you sign up and you are in a leadership position in the military, you should not be skipping out when your men are sent off to fight in war. It's just messed up. It just sends the wrong message. It sends a message of cowardice, of failure, of somebody who's scared to actually do what they signed up to do. And look, if that's just somebody that, look, you get scared and you're fearful of your family and you say, you know what, it's not for me, fine. But don't use it down the road for political points. And honestly, this reminded me of a historical figure I've been reading about. I've been reading about the American Revolution, the early republic, and this Roman figure called Cincinnatus. Now, Cincinnatus was a figure who went off to war. He fought valiantly, defended his homeland, came home, and he wanted nothing to do with the accolades. He wanted nothing to do. He laid down his sword. He retired back to his home, and he became a legend because he said, look, I don't want any of the credit for the things I've done. George Washington knew about Cincinnatus. Many of the founders admired him and held him as an iconic figure in history. And so Walz is just the opposite of that person. He wants to claim all the titles. He wants to claim he did so much in the military. He wants to claim Command Sergeant Major, but he does not want to actually do what's required of him in the military. So it's just shameful. It's embarrassing. It's cowardly, and he should never claim that he was that rank. He should never claim anything about that when he abandoned his troop before they were sent to be deployed. Now, the next story we're going to get into, the next aspect of this story is really going to blow your mind. It's honestly so bad. I really don't know how Kamala Harris got away with picking him so far. I think we're going to see a media firestorm of these stories as time goes on and people actually get to know who this guy is. Because if you look at this, if you look at Walz's policies, he is clearly one of the most radical people I've ever seen in politics. I mean, by far. It's not even close. And the first thing we're going to look at here is what was called the Trans Refuge Bill. So he signed a bill that basically gives courts a lot of power in the state of Minnesota in regards to child sex change issues. He made a change that said, look, a court will have, they should take into consideration in child custody cases whether a child is trying to undergo this surgery and the parent is not letting them. It should be considered, which basically is going to give a hand up to the person, the parent who is supporting this gender affirming care, which is just another acronym. It's a euphemism for mental health disorder affirmation. It's you are affirming a known mental health disorder and gender affirming care. And we've even seen in the UK, after the banning of hormone therapies, there have been absolutely no rise in the suicide rate. So people say, oh, you can't ban it. You can't do this and that because it's going to raise the suicide rate. People are going to kill themselves. That's just not a valid argument. We've already seen it in the UK. And by the way, the UK elected much more of a liberal prime minister, and he still banned the hormone therapy. Does that not tell you something? I mean, hello. But dubbed the Trans Refuge Bill that Walz signed, the law grants legal protection to children who travel to Minnesota for so-called gender-affirming care, including puberty blockers, reconstructive genital surgery, and hormone therapy, as well as the medical practitioners who provide it. The law provides Minnesota courts from complying with child removal requests. So If you go to the state and you get care and your parents like, I don't want you to have that care, you will not be removed from the state of Minnesota. It's insane. It is literally insane. In March of 2023, Walz signed an executive order directing state agencies and officials to decline to help other states that try to penalize individuals seeking mental health disorder affirmation care, which is gender-affirming care. He advocated adding so-called gender-affirming care and abortion to the state constitution and signed a bill that removed language in the Minnesota Human Rights. Now, listen to this. This is one of the most insane things I've ever seen a politician do, and this is what Tim Walz did in Minnesota. He signed a bill that removed language in the Minnesota Human Rights Act explicitly stating that sexual orientation does not include pedophilia or a physical or sexual attachment to children by an adult. He removed language that said sexual orientation does not apply to these minor attracted persons, as we're hearing in the news today, to these adults who are attracted to children. So now he's essentially saying sexual orientation can include adults who are attracted to children. How is this not getting national attention? How is this somebody who is eligible to run for vice president? You support an adult being attracted to a child? Excuse me? What is wrong with you? People are calling J.D. Vance weird? Bro, you literally signed a bill saying that pedos can operate in your state. I'm sorry. That should not be acceptable. That is insane. That is insane. And you're never going to hear the mainstream report on this until it gets national attention. So now we have Tim Walz with stolen valor. We have him claiming an unearned rank. He deserted his troop when they got called for a deployment to Iraq. And now he's signing bills that are enabling pedophilia, period. This is crazy stuff. But guess what? It gets even better. Just wait. Wait till you see what he also did. Walz repealed a bill called the Women's Right to Know Informed Consent Law, which removed the requirement for abortions after the first trimester, removed the ban on non-physicians performing abortions, expanded taxpayer funding of abortion, mandated that health insurance plans cover abortion, and this is the worst part. This is insane. This should be disqualifying. Remove the requirement that life-saving care be given to infants born alive after surviving an abortion. It honestly breaks my heart to read that. Can you believe this guy? You signed a bill that lets poor little babies who survive an abortion. That's horrific enough. I'm sorry. But I'm not sorry. It's horrific enough that you survive an abortion and you are enabling that baby to not receive life-saving care. You are taking away that baby's ability to have life-saving care. That is disgusting. That's not only horrible. That's not only disqualifying. That is honestly subhuman. That is inhumane. This should be instantly disqualifying. This guy, stolen valor, unborn babies who make it through an abortion, who survive basically an attempt on their life, don't receive life-saving care, and then you do the whole gender-affirming care. We're protecting kids who come here in refuge. You can't go back to your parents. And then you're enabling in Minnesota law, you are enabling adults who are attracted to minors to operate by saying it's a sexual orientation. This is a demented man. This is a weak man. You know, and I see this a lot too. I've seen like really cringe. The Krasenstein twins on Twitter. I don't know if you guys follow these guys. I mean, they're praising this guy like he's a second coming of Christ. Let's be honest. They're praising him like I've never seen before. You're praising a man who has allowed for babies to die innocently. Horribly. You survive an abortion. You're already born. You're alive. And you're not going to receive life-saving care? How evil. It's pure evil. It's literally pure evil. If I don't have pure evil in the title of this video, I will be shocked. Because when I read this stuff today, when I discovered how evil and demented this guy is, this governor, I have no idea how he attained the rank of governor with these insane policies. I mean, these are the policies of somebody with a mental disorder. Okay? So let me know what you guys think down below. Are you agreeing with me on this stuff? Am I crazy or something? Because the way I'm reading this is just horrible. It's unthinkable. It's unthinkable that the vice president of the United States could have such radical, sick positions. Sick. It's cringe. I have no respect for this guy. Zero. I have zero respect for Tim Walz after reading this stuff. How do you have these positions? So the last thing I'm going to cover today is a little bit less egregious, but honestly, it's still just as bad maybe in some sense. And that is his position on free speech, which basically doesn't have a position on free speech. He has a horrible position on free speech. He doesn't believe in free speech. This is our moderate Midwesterner. This is our go hunting with the boys and have a beer. This is who we're picking. This is the moderate. Listen to this guy.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Can I ask you this? What is the point of free speech if it's not about misinformation? What is the point of free speech if we can't flush out misinformation and decide what's true? You are literally arguing, and this is what surprises me. Do you not have the IQ to understand that by taking away misinformation or hate speech, you are single-handedly placing the power in a select few's hands to tell people what they can say and what they can't say? This is Orwellian, this is communistic, this is Marxist right here in front of us. And this guy, the sad thing is, you can tell by this how he talks that he like believes what he's saying. So the sad thing is that he believes in this stuff. But dude, you're literally arguing for no free speech if it's misinformation. Let me ask you this. Who determines misinformation? Who is that? Is it the CIA? Is it the WHO, which has multiple times messed up in a massive way on record? Is it going to be the NSA, who's illegally spying on Americans? Who are we going to let decide what's true and what's not? Mr. Walz, who believes in the Constitution? Are you kidding me? This guy has antithetical views to everything that America stands for. Everything. It's getting me fired up. This is getting me fired up because I have never seen somebody so radical. And these kind of policies, we hear people on like the trans issue. They say, oh, this is threatening trans lives. You're threatening these people's lives if you don't do this, if you don't support gender affirming care. This guy's policies are actually threatening people's lives. This guy's policies of basically criminalizing parents who do not subvert to their child's disordered way of thinking in terms of gender affirming care, which, by the way, I will say it again and again and again. Gender affirming care is a euphemism for the affirmation of a mental health disorder, period. And it's just amazing. It's just amazing. So I can sit here and ramble for 30 more minutes about this guy because it's infuriating that somebody with this level of ignorance is on the presidential ticket. It's just sad. So there's many other issues I could talk about. He's putting tampons in the boys' locker room is what I'm reading about. I've yet to corroborate that, so don't quote me on it, but I'm almost certain he's putting tampons in the little boy's bathroom. It's like this guy almost went down the list and figured out what stupid policies can I enact? What crazy, insane, lunatic policies could I enact? Let's go down the list. I want that one. I want that one. Give me that one. We'll let babies that are born that survive an abortion die. We don't give them life-saving care. We'll enshrine pedophilia in Minnesota law. It'll be a sexual orientation. This guy just went down the list of lunatic policies, and enacted them. So, anyways, let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Am I crazy on this, or is this guy crazy? Because I honestly I'm speechless. I have nothing left to say on it. So if you enjoyed the channel, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe to Grab Your Gear. Check out Saving the Republic with Joe State in my separate channel where I will be posting clips from the show and other content. As I've said, leave us a comment down below, and I will see you next time.